All right, so just to go over the fieldbook main screen layout, I'm going to go back to PowerPoint. Okay, so up at the top, just breaking this down into the different components of fieldbook main screen. So up at the top, these are called info bars, and this is where we can see that extra information that we might want to have while we're in the field. So if we want to know the pedigree of the line that we're looking at, or if we want to know historical data that's been collected, we can display that up here. Or really anything else that you want to see while you're collecting data could be accessible from those. Below that is our trait navigation. So this is where we navigate, move between our different traits that we have. So we can move forward or we can move backward. We have our trait name. And then right below that, we have our trait details. So in this case, for height, it's going to be measured in centimeters, which isn't a problem anywhere except for the United States. You need to actually tell undergrad students. Below that, we have our plot navigation, or if we're collecting on some other entity, just our entry navigation. We can move backward, we can move forward, and in the middle of those two is where we have our primary and our secondary order that we chose when we imported our file. And so that's why they're really good for navigation, because they're right there. You always have them accessible, and it just really works a lot better that way. Okay, so at the very bottom, like the last half of the screen, this is where we're actually going to collect data. So this area changes depending on what type of data we're collecting. And this is where the trait types comes into play. So once we collect a piece of data, it's stored, displayed on this row. We need to delete that value. At the very bottom of the screen is a trash can that we can delete that value. If we have missing data, so to distinguish between a data point that's not there and maybe a plot that we had a collaborator in Kenya who actually lost plots to elephants. So maybe your plot got stampeded by an elephant. We can put an NA and store that instead. So the different type of trait formats, we have a lot of them. So the one that you should be seeing most likely now is numeric, which just gives a number pad, and you can type that in. We also have several additional symbols that you can add in along with those numbers. Next, we have categorical. Here we define 12 different categories. We select one of them. So single category selection, essentially. We have a percent. This is a percent scroller, really simple. We have our date trait. So this shows today's day by default. We can move forward or backward in single day increments and then save that value. So this is really good for flowering, because normally when you're collecting that data, you are at the plant itself and you want to know that you want to record the fact that that happened today. We have a Boolean trait. So this is a standard true or false, just a single button, really simple. We have a photo trait. So we can take photos of the plot that we're looking at, interesting characteristics or features. Those photos are named with the plot ID that we originally chose when we imported the field file. Hey. And so the plot ID, the trait name, the number of the photo, and the timestamp. So we have a lot of information saved into each one of our photos. Now, photos are a little different than all of the other data types, all of the other trait formats, because we can collect multiple photos per plot. And all of those are saved, organized, named, to make it as easy as possible to analyze those photos. So on the second row, we have a text trait for collecting simple textual notes. I forgot what somebody called this the other day. We have a disease rating trait where we have 21 buttons. You can define the scale that you want to use. I know different researchers use different scales. Some go 0, 1, 5, and then go by tens from there. By default, it's in 5 increments, and then you can combine the RMS for the reaction type. If you select the slash button, that allows you to put in multiple % severity. So if you have a heterogeneous response within the plot, you can note that as well. So our location trait collects a point location of where you are at that time. This still isn't really good enough for on-the-fly, like past referencing those locations to know where your plot was, just because of the imprecision of the devices themselves. But you'll get a pretty good idea of where you were in the relatively within the field. We have a counter trait where you big button to go up, little button to go down. Really good for counting plants, insects. Our multi-cat trait, so this is multi-categorical. And in this case, we can define as many categories as we want. It's basically creating a custom keyboard of categories, and we can combine those categories in different ways to collect combinations of features. So this is if you're walking through and just want to collect 3 different things really rapidly, this is the one that you want. And then finally is our audio trait. And this records the user's voice as an MP3 file and saves it in a folder akin to the pictures. I have honestly never thought like of purpose. Yes. The audio. So it saves the file similarly to the picture. Yeah, so the file, the MP3 file is named for the plot ID so that you know which plot that those comments went to. Now, it doesn't translate it to text, but there are people that tell me they love this, and I don't quite understand why. I don't know who has time to listen back to all of their own thoughts. So, pop quiz for everyone in the room. Like, what's the default multi-cat trait that's included has kind of, so this trait right here, like what is the background of those? What do you see about those? Why are those traits important?
Because they're mental pieces.
Yeah, it's a little like Easter egg that they're like all of the original Mendelian traits.